All right, welcome everybody. Pleasure to have you all here. We are going to be talking about the water sports industry. I am Randy Salem, part of Business Climate Leaders in the Bay Area, just south of San Francisco. And pleased to introduce Allie Payne, who is our fantastic intern. She's from New Jersey, but going to school at Georgetown. For some reason, I wanted to say George Washington, but Georgetown. So, and she is studying anthropology and the environmental impacts on anthropology, which I think is really fascinating. She's brilliant and has been a huge help to us. She also is a great outdoors person. She runs wilderness programs and tours from DC and has scuba dove around the world in assorted places. So she has the ocean and water sports deep in her blood. So with that, I will turn it over to Allie.
Thank you, Randy. That was a very kind introduction. So also thank you to everyone for coming. I'm very excited to talk about this and get some feedback and see where we can get this going with the water sports industry. And so my audio cut out for a quick second, but Randy might have already said this, but you can type any questions if they're popping up into the chat, and then we can get to them at the end for sure. Okay, so just some general information about the water sports industry. In the United States, approximately 40 million Americans participate every year. And those are active participants, not just people who hold a PADI certification from X number of years ago. And then for the purposes of this project, we're defining water sports as scuba diving, surfing, and could include windsurfing as well, sailing, and then paddle sports, which ranges from paddle boarding, then to kayaking, canoeing, and etc. from there. And then on the economic side of things, it looks like there's a $12.6 billion domestic contribution to the GDP from the water sports industry annually. So there definitely is a financial stake in this industry. And so water sports and climate change, I think that's kind of the reason we're all here right now. And so I'm sure many of you know, but the oceans and waterways are greatly being damaged by climate change. Some ways that this is occurring is through the more severe storms that we're seeing and more unpredictable storms as well. Specifically related to the oceans, there's increasing water temperatures, which is leading to ocean acidification. That's really harming the coral reefs and then by extension, the scuba diving and snorkeling industries. And then kind of with all of this and a combination of other ecosystem problems, degradation that's going on, a lot of ecosystem services are suffering and a lot of biodiversity is being lost. And then on the flip side of this, a lot of medical associations, the Lancet Health Commission, the American Medical Association, and a few others have put forth statements saying that pollution is posing the greatest current public health threat. And what that means for the water sports industry is that as an industry based on healthy people being active and being out in the world, those numbers of participants are going to start to decline as people's health is also declining. And so the combination of these two effects, both the degradation of the environment itself and then the degradation of human health, means that the economic side of the industry is greatly going to suffer just as the environment is suffering. And so what we've done is author a water sports climate declaration. And I can show you what that actually looks like live on the website, but just to give an overview, the declaration itself highlights the urgency of the problem. It acknowledges what we were just talking about, so how climate change has an impact on water sports and on human health in general. And then at the same time, it promotes the use of carbon fee and dividend legislation to address climate change. And then after that, it emphasizes the bipartisan nature of the issue and the EICD as a solution. And so I'll just link to this here. Maybe some of you got a chance to look at this beforehand, but this is on the BCL website. And this is what the declaration itself looks like. if you were to send it to a business owner or any connections like that. And then there's the link to sign the declaration. It takes you to a Google form, and there's some more information and directed questions there. Okay, so the overall strategy for this project that we're working on right now is three-pronged. So the first step is to engage the coastal CCL chapters and encourage those CCLers to reach out to local water sports industry leaders and businesses, hopefully ones that they have relationships with, to really get a good basis of support. And those businesses could be local surf shops, water sports operators, and things like that. The next layer of this would be talking with water sports equipment manufacturers. So that would be kind of on a bit of a larger scale, but connecting with surfboard manufacturers or wetsuit makers, whatever it is that's related to the industry. That's kind of the next layer of what we want to target. And then the third step would be to network with local, state, and national trade groups and associations. And so I do have just 2 diving ones listed here because I'm a diver and I was excited about including that in the presentation. But I do, Randy can maybe speak on this a little. We have a bit of a relationship, someone does, that's connected with BCL through Project Aware at PADI. And so we're hoping maybe that could be a good place to start for this, the third level strategy. But yes. Okay, so what you can do, there are kind of 4 areas that we're looking to grow in right now. We're always looking for more information and more data and more research. So anyone who wants to take on that sort of work would definitely be very welcome to. Another area would be to write op-eds and blogs for BCL's website and also social media accounts. And those would be a good way to get information out to business owners. And so that would be really good for someone who has good writing, communication skills, etc. Another option is to join the team. And that's another Google form for internal CCLers that want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with the water sports industry and the climate declaration. And then another really helpful thing to do right now would be to talk with local companies and trade associations that you may already have a relationship with. And so I wanted to also go through a few of the key resources that would be helpful while you're learning more about this climate declaration, and then also reaching out to some other folks who would potentially want to be involved. So I think a really great starting place for the resources is the Water Sports Toolkit that we've worked on. Within the toolkit, there's a step-by-step approach for exactly how you would reach out to a business owner in the water sports industry. There's a sample email that you could send and just kind of insert their name, the name of their business, etc. And then it includes some more information about the specifics of the declaration. And then a really helpful resource would be a list of the pre-existing business endorsers, specifically from the outdoor industry. And that could be helpful if you're networking with someone in a specific area or state. You could say, oh, well, this business also supports it, just to kind of have make people feel a bit more confident in the declaration process. So I can show you what that looks like here, if my computer decides to load. Okay. So those are just some BCL and CCL logos that aren't loading properly. But this is what it looks like. This is the step-by-step part. There are also some helpful links here that could be good to send to a business owner, or even just for yourself to read if you're curious about where some of our research is coming from and how it's going to affect the industry. Here is an example of a sample email. There's a bunch of hyperlinks in there so people can kind of access more information at their leisure without being bombarded with so much text. And this is a bit more information on what the water sports industry can do to help the climate crisis. And then this is what I was talking about earlier with the outdoor industry endorsements. So there are already a ton because of the great work other BCLers and CCLers have been doing. But yes, so that is what the toolkit looks like. And I can show you another helpful resource. So another one I wanted to highlight is the business case for carbon fee and dividend legislation. And so this is a one-pager that describes the economic case for the EICDA. So that's something that you would probably find on a lot of CL resources. But this document specifically tries to relate it to the water sports industry. So it could be helpful to send to a water sports business person, because it would be really tailored to their business needs. And so I can show you what that one looks like as well. So it talks about some risk factors and also benefits that they would see from taking action and being a leader on climate in their industry. And then here at the One Big Idea part, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act is linked here, and it kind of just presents an overview. And then also with a link to sign the declaration at the end of it. And let me go back to the slides. I also wanted to show one more before we get to questions. Sorry about that. A way to access a whole roster of resources for internal CCLers. And so this is on bclresources.org. I can show you how to navigate from this page as well, but all linked here. So there's the link to join the team that I referenced on the What You Can Do slide, the toolkit, which we already went through, the Water Sports Climate Declaration, which is what we looked at in the beginning, that's on the general BCL website, the business case for the EICDA, and then a flyer to kind of share, post around to see if you want to get other CCLers involved in the process. And so to access this page directly from bclresources.org, this is the home landing page, and then you click to industry resources, and then scroll down to the outdoor industry. And then from there, click to Water Sports Declaration, and then you're at the page that has everything hyperlinked there. And we can also send this direct link out after the presentation as well. And so now we get to the question slides. So I might have gone through that a little quickly, but if anyone has questions, we can definitely go back over anything at all. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Ellie. As always, great job. Appreciate your thoroughness and articulating the whole resources and what the plan is. So questions for everybody, thoughts, insights, brilliant ideas.
Yes, I think it looks like Phil has a question. Is that right?
Go ahead. Can't hear you, Phil. Just unmute.
Sorry. That was a terrific presentation. It looks like you have a lot of very comprehensive materials. I know a lot of them were developed before the Energy Innovation Act was reintroduced. I think probably some of them will have to be updated. I saw in the business case, it talked about a regulatory pause, which isn't in the current Energy Innovation Act. So probably a few of those materials will have to be updated. And I had a question on the declaration. Is signing on to the declaration an explicit endorsement of the act, or is it endorsement of principles similar to the act? I know some declarations are an explicit endorsement of the act, and other declarations are just a commitment to the principles embodied in the act. Which type is this declaration?
Thanks, Phil. I'll take that, Allie, if that's okay. First of all, Phil, thanks for pointing that out. We'll have to just make sure we do a review of the material to make sure that anything from the new EICDA, including the House reference number, is correct on that. So In terms of this, Ally, if you go to the declaration, just click to the declaration quick, and you'll see that the declaration itself, if you scroll down to the bottom, it says, you know, carbon and fee and dividend policies such as the EICDA. And then if you click on the sign the declaration here, the way it works and the way we're kind of shifting it for all the declarations is when you go down, then companies choose whether they are just endorsing right there.
Okay,
I would
very
like to
good.
endorse the EICDA. And in 95% of the cases so far from the experience, people choose the EICDA as well, but it also, if they don't want to endorse a specific bill, but they want to be part of the declaration, then they can do that. So that's the way it's set up.
Thank you very much.
You know, I
And then-
think too, I'll just add that I think it's really good to, if you're seeking a signature on the declaration, is to explain that in the form to fill out for the declaration, that you'll also be asked about the Energy Innovation Act. And that ideally, we would hope that they would do both if they're comfortable with it, so that they know it could be potentially two steps.
Yeah. And the other thing, scroll down a little bit, Ally, if you can. The latest addition to these, of course, we're learning as we go, is to let people upload their logos. So Ally's now running the Business Climate Leaders LinkedIn page, and we have other interns that are helping us in trying to up our game on social media. But being able to, you know, when somebody endorses the water sports declaration or the biking declaration, to be able to say, hey, thank you, and tag them on social media and get them as well to put and share that they are supporting climate action. So. Other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself. Hi, Tim there. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Randy.
Go ahead, Jim.
Oh, thanks, guys. I gotta go. We're getting ready to go to New York here early in the morning. Allie, just some past history. You mentioned Patty and Nowie in the presentation. Project Aware is already an endorser. They endorsed about 2 years ago. I reached out to Dana Moore yesterday. Hopefully I'll get a response in regard to
Project Aware is Patty's environmental conservation arm. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll get a response in regard to them signing on to the declaration or otherwise reinforcing their support. Nowie Green Diver does not have a direct contact anymore. I took a shot and sent out an email to Maria Lewis, who was their executive director. There's no mention of her on the website at this point, but we'll see. I'll continue to push that. They did not, at the time I contacted her, she did not want to talk about endorsing. She was just trying to keep the doors open. It was at the height of the pandemic. So that's a little past history. The dive community in general has been a very tough nut to crack. And I'm glad to see people getting the coastal folks involved in it, so that we have more traction to try to get shops on board. But it's been rather disappointing in regard to the dive community in general.
Why do you think that is, or what have their responses been to you, Tim?
Well, let's see. There's Coral Restoration Foundation, who gave us a flat, we can't endorse, and Salemi was in on that conversation. Yes, they can, because nonprofits can endorse this kind of thing. I haven't gone back to them recently to see whether or not they changed their mind. Maria was going to put me in touch with the head guy at Force Blue, and he said a long time ago he'd get in touch, and I reached out a couple times, he didn't get a response. Reef Foundation, they want to remain neutral. That's it. You know, Diving Equipment Manufacturing and Manufacturing Association, DEMA, same thing. I don't think I reached out to their CEO a couple months back when before the new bill was introduced, and got nothing in response. So I don't know. The local shops, I'm working on an endorsement from Jeff Massetti's shop here in Pittsburgh. We got to get all the partners on board in order to do that. Others just don't respond or are afraid of the politics. So I'm glad to see other people. That's what you need to do with this, is farm it out to people who live in the neighborhood, because one guy in Pittsburgh can't get it done. That's all there is to it.
I thought Pittsburgh was the diving capital of America.
Well, we do a lot of diving around here, and Jeff's shop is busy, by the way. You know, he's stacked up. But it's a question of getting past the politics of it, I think. You know, it's still, in this region, fracking is king, still, whether it's true or not. And people are, you know, Jeff's got ties to people in the gas and oil. So I don't know. Anyway,
Thanks.
listen, you guys have a great time. Enjoy, discuss. I'm going to get out of here. I got to get up early in the morning. Take care, and we'll see you again sometime soon.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Rainey. Thank you, Ally. Thanks, everybody.
There was another question out there.
Tom, I'll go after you.
Okay, you mind? I guess my questions are kind of more structural. My head kind of spins when I look at the structure and the relationship between CCL and the BCL and almost every other interest group. It's a, you know, a fairly simple issues group that you participate in. Here there seems to be two parallel universes up there, and so my questions are kind of, okay, let's say I'm interested in reaching out to summer camps. It's a big deal, and like canoe clubs. Do I approach them from the CCL perspective, where I'm comfortable and have some stature? Do I approach them, you know, from a totally different thing and asking them to endorse a BCL endorsement or whatever? Do I, if I get people to endorse on the CCL side through the Grass Tops endorsements collector, does that automatically get fed over into the BCL kinds of things? Or how are these two, what seems to me kind of parallel universes, how are they coordinated, and how do I interface with it without having to learn two totally different systems and attend twice as many meetings?
Yeah, the short answer,
keep it on top of it.
I get it. So the short answer, instead of parallel universes, we are in the womb of CCL. So Business Climate Leaders is simply an action team that is, you know, that of supporters. We're all CCLers. We're just supporting people like you to engage with companies. So you can approach it. Sometimes you can approach it either way, just saying you're from CCL and this is a CCL initiative, or if you think it's a business that wants to be, you know, under a business umbrella, you can do it, you know, say that you're from BCL. So either way is fine, totally up to you. And they are all integrated completely. Everything that goes into the declarations ends up in the EICDA, you know, if they're signing the EICDA, and it also ends up in GET, the Grass Tops Engagement Tracker. So it's all very much integrated.
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, sort of extending off of that, I mean, CCL has their issue pages with their forums and you know, regular meetings and stuff. I can access BCL through CCL, but then I don't see are there action pages for each of these subcategories? Is the water sports a subcategory of the outdoor industries, or should outdoor industries revert to being a winter sports organization that it started out with? I'm still confused. So,
Bill, you want to?
Yeah, I think that initially it was just it used to be the Ski and Outdoor Industry Action Team. And then we created, that was before I think BCL was just, I don't remember where you were then, but
I was around,
We-
Tim.
we, over time, we realized that we wanted to widen our net. And so we decided to change it to Outdoor Industry Action Team. A lot of the endorsements are through the ski industry based on connections that people had. And that's where we had the most fortune with it. And we're still reaching out to everybody. And I think that what we see BCL offering is another choice, an opportunity for people to engage. The declarations, I think, are really great because it creates this continuity between different businesses that are in the similar focus area. And because BCL also works towards getting endorsements for the Energy Innovation Act, it's very similar to what we are doing in the outdoor industry. And I think just to say what Randy said is, go use whatever resources, you want to use. It's all working to achieve a similar goal. And, I think that we had the Outdoor Industry Action Team, and then, there was some collaboration that we were doing with BCL. And so there was a outdoor industry sector created in BCL, but essentially it's the same thing. We just organize, in the case of the Outdoor Industry Action Team, I'm based out of the CCL main community website. And so it's not directly tied to BCL, but like Randy said, it's all one really. And it's wherever you think you can have the most influence and effect, I would say.
Thanks. So all part of a growing organization. So Bill, did you have a question? And Laurel?
Yeah, I had my raised hand because I just wanted to, I know, Ali, I loved your presentation, and you talked about engaging as I think the first strategy was to have it, reach out to CCL chapters that are coastal chapters. And I just wanted to add that, really any chapter that's connected or near a body of water or a river where people are kayaking or sailing on freshwater lakes or anything really are opportunities as well. So I just didn't want people to think that the only place where this declaration fits is on the coast, because I think there are some other opportunities, and I think we really want to try to welcome, kayakers and people that would be on rivers and lakes as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also want to shout out Tom Wells. He was really helpful in getting the coastal and sort of near water resource teams involved. So that's a good point. And also thank you, Tom, for your help with that.
Yeah, Laurel?
Well, just to build on kind of like what Tom was saying about the different resources that are being created to go towards the mission, as a new CCL volunteer and as a 20-year water sports professional, I can't tell you how amazing it feels that we have like a declaration for our industry and an outdoor industry group. And I think that as someone who's worked in this industry so long, we're not used to working with politics or endorsing acts or anything like that. It's completely outside of our wheelhouse. And so I like the declaration very much, because when I read it, I feel like, yes, okay, this like makes a lot of sense. And then because I also, like Ali, have a degree from a million years ago in human ecology. So that's kind of fun. I'm more passionate about the climate side of things, but I think a lot of my colleagues are not. And so, but then when they read the declaration, they're just like, oh yeah, actually. And then the business impacts that you talked about at the beginning, Ali, were also really impactful. And I think that's going to help get some of the, we talked also with a strategy, like getting some of the small businesses, I reached out to a couple athletes, to a couple small business owners. So just a word of appreciation for the water sports group.
Great. Really appreciate that, Laura. And appreciate your enthusiasm and getting the first declaration signed. And I just wanted to say, first of all, I just want to wrap up officially. I think it's 1/2 now. I'm just double checking. So feel free to head out if you need to, but I'll stick around. And if Ali has a few minutes to stick around too to answer any other questions, but wanted to honor that. And just to say that the declarations are great and it's been a nice entree. I kind of look at it like a, I guess I said it in a presentation, like breadsticks, like you show up at a table, there's breadsticks, they're tasty, they're sample size, they're easy to eat. But the ultimate goal is the main course is really getting these companies engaged with legislators to get them to lobby meetings with us or on their own. So this is a great, calling card. It's an easy way to get in, or hopefully easier way, as Laurel's saying. It makes sense and is specific to the industry. So it's hopefully they're more receptive to that. As Tim was saying, he was having challenges to that. But keep in mind that it's a starting point to developing a longer term relationship and hopefully getting them involved and engaged in front of their Congress people. So with that, I will give if there's any other questions, and I want Ali to have the last word today too.
Could I just throw in my 2 cents for a second? One of the problems that I'm seeing with CCL is that ultimately we want some person in an individual chapter to lead this and focus on the businesses that are right there in front of them, right, in their district. And that's kind of the hardest piece of this, because I know in my chapter, there's 600 people on our list. There's 12 of us that really work hard on it. And the other 580 people aren't really engaged that much. And so, that's the struggle that I'm seeing in a lot of, even the things that I'm doing with my Coastal Impacts Action Team, is getting that individual person to commit to being an organizer in their own community through their CCL chapter. It can't be the group leaders because they're already too busy. So
Yeah.
Is there something that you're doing with business climate leaders that's addressing that particular problem?
Yeah, I pray a lot. And totally, that's totally what it is. Where we've been successful with beer, we had Steffi in Asheville that really said, this is important to my congressperson, so I'm going to go after the breweries. We had Nancy on the wine industry in upstate New York that said wineries are really important industry in our district, and I'm going to go out and get 30 wineries. And similarly, now we have Rich in Oregon getting bike, so it totally takes a champion. And in this case, with the declarations, it can happen anywhere. It can happen with Laurel in Montana, getting water sports, but it's like getting those initial, companies on board, and then it starts to build some momentum. And obviously the bigger the number, the easier, the more otters you can get to join the flotilla kind of thing. But yeah, for me, and that's Ali's work next, is to, follow up with some of you here and try and follow up with the chapters and try and find a couple champions at a couple chapters that see that it in their interest. It's got to be in their interest, in their district, that it makes sense.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Are we interested in maintaining a connection to an actual business, or is it a group of members that are organized as a club?
All are good. So getting, a local kiteboarding, operator, kiteboarding manufacturers, to get the kite, Laura said she's got the Women Kiteboarders Association. So that's all great. And then there's also trade groups. So the goal is to kind of pull in all these different pieces, parts of the puzzle, to hopefully, end up having ultimate influence. So good question. So in this case, it could be, a national scuba diving association like a PADI. It could be a state association. It could be a local, Association as well. So they're all good. Okay. With that, we'll hand it over to Ally to any last comments and thoughts, and we'll call it a wrap.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming out and asking questions and pointing things out that we kind of missed as we were maybe like in the weeds a little bit with this process over the last few months. So I really appreciate everyone's help. I think going forward, if you're feeling excited about this, I will definitely be reaching out and will help and support you to get this ball rolling, because it is something that's really important to me as well. So just thank you to everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your evening, depending on where you're located currently. But thank you very much for spending the last 30 minutes with us.
Thanks. Thank you, Ally.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ally.
everybody.
Thank you, Randy.